This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Rabbi Say, good Erev Shabbos, as we prepare for Parshas Korach, Haba Aleinu L'Tova. So, everybody wants to increase their bottom line. Who wouldn't want to make more money, make more parnasa? Everybody works hard, or worked hard, to make a living. So, what can we do to make have a little more revach? And yet, the Gemara tells us in Masechta Ma'ikot and Daf Chav Ches, Banei Chaye Umezoynei, Lav V'schusa Talia Milsa Ela B'Mazel. The Gemara says that parnasa is not dependent on one's merit; it's dependent on one's mazel. It's predetermined. There's no merit system when it comes to parnasa, which is not very inspiring, but that's what the Gemara says. The Gemara says it's dependent on one's mazel. But the question is there anything a person could do to change their mazel? So Tosfos says in the Masechta Shabbos, Daf Kuf Nun Vav, that we say Ein Mazel Yisrael. Says Tosfos, no, what does that mean? Everyone has mazel. Ein Mazel Yisrael means you could break the mazel b'zechus gadol, with a great merit, with an extraordinary mitzvah, you could change your mazel. Not any ordinary mitzvah, not every mitzvah could change the mazel, could increase the parnasa, but says Tosfos, there is a zechus gadol that you could do to break out of the mazel. And the $1 million question is, what exactly is that zechus gadol? What exactly is that exceptionally great mitzvah which surpasses all other zechusim and allows you to change the mazel? Comes the Chasam Sofer, and the Chasam Sofer says, I've got it. I've identified the zechus gadol. David HaMelech says in Tehillim, we say it every morning, Kuf Mem Zayin, Hasam Gevulech Shalom, Chelev Chitim Yasbiech. Literally, someone who makes his boundary at peace, he will be satiated with the plumpest grain. What's that supposed to mean? Says the Chasam Sofer, every human being in this world has certain principles of reason and logic by which they live by. And for the most part, most people, once they establish what their rules are, the way they operate, they don't break them. Everybody has their own personal rules of conduct and what they deem to be correct, and most people are not willing to bend so easily. But, however, there's almost no one who's so principled that they'll never budge and they'll never violate what they deem to be correct. For instance, there are a lot of reasonable people out there that try to act with chachma and discipline, but that's up until a certain point. That's until they become jealous. But as soon as they're jealous, they lose all rationality, they lose all sanity, and they violate what they deem to be correct. Or you have some people that try to act within reason, try to act within the dictates of logic, but that's up until it's a matter of money. But as soon as it's a matter of money, all bets are off.
All principles go out.
All bets are off. And other people are quite reasonable and they act with chachma, but that's until their kavod is involved. And when their kavod is involved, forget about it. Okay? But a great person will act with chachma, will not compromise, no matter if it's a matter of money, doesn't matter if it's a matter of kavod, it doesn't matter if it's jealousy, they will always act with their boundaries. The boundary of a chacham then is not money, is not kavod, and it's not jealousy. A great person has a different boundary, and their boundary is peace. A great person always will conduct themselves in the way they deem to be correct until it's a matter of shalom, until it's a matter of peace. But if their way of doing things comes in contradistinction to peace, in other words, if their way of doing things is going to cause machlokes, if it's going to shake the shalom, then they say, Ad kan v'sulai. This is the way I do things, this is the way I act, these are my principles, but my border is peace. My boundary is peace. Says Ribbon Shalom, you're such a great person. Your boundary is not kesef, your boundary is not kavod, your boundary is not kina. Your boundary is shalom, chelev, chitim, yaspiech. That is the zechus gedola, that is the great merit, which even though a person's parnasa is predetermined and fixed, nevertheless, this is the great zechus that you don't have to wait till the next world. Right here, ba'olam hazeh, the Ribbon Shalom says you're out of the Mazel. Hasam gevulech shalom. Someone who conducts himself properly until it's a matter of peace. Chelev chitim yasbiech, says the Chasam Sofer. This is the great merit. Now, Rabbi said we're not talking about matters of halacha. We're not talking about matters of hashkafa. When it comes to halacha, when it comes to Jewish principle, v'ha'emes v'hashalom ehavu, first comes the truth, and only then comes the peace. You don't bend halacha, you don't bend hashkafa for peace. We're talking about everybody has different ways of doing things, which they think is the most efficient, the most successful, the smartest way. We're talking about a person's personal attitudes, which a person acts, but that's up until a certain point, until it causes machlekes. What's the proof, Rabbi say, that if a person is roidev shalom, the reward is ba'olam hazeh? What's the proof? You don't need a bigger proof than Parshas Korach. Look what happened to Korach. You look at the devastating, catastrophic punishment of Korach. Korach is swallowed by the ground. His men are burnt in a fire. All his worldly possessions. V'yardu heim v'chol asher lohem chayim sha'olah. Everything happened in Korach's lifetime. Rebbe Shalom didn't say, let me deal with you in the next world, let me deal with you in Gehenna. Rebbe Shalom said, right here, Chayim, right here, Ba'olam Hazeh, Machloikis, you will have the most devastating punishment, Ba'olam Hazeh. And we all know, Mida Toiva Meruba. The Rebbe Shalom's attribute of reward is 500 times greater than his attribute of punishment. So if you want to extrapolate with that ratio, then just imagine for one moment, just picture the windfall, the jackpot that's in store of someone who is roidev shalom. Because if this is the punishment that happened to Korach, ba'olam hazeh, just extrapolate 500 times greater than that, the schar of the roidev shalom. Let me tell you one story. Okay? Found the story in 3 different svarim. 3 different svarim. Or books, or... Okay. A man calls Rabbi Yoman. Rabbi Yoman is the confidant of Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky. He's like one of his shamoshim. And he calls it a very serious issue. The guy happened to be a Ger Chassid. He says, my daughter is scheduled to be married in 3 weeks. The invitations are out, and lo yaleinu, the Chassan was just diagnosed with Yana Machla. And we don't know what to do. We don't know how to react. We don't know how to proceed. The man said, we went to the Ger Rebbe. Ger Rebbe said, can't answer the question, too difficult. Ger Rebbe consulted one of the other Gedolei Hadar. They didn't know what to say. They said, there's only one person in this world who can answer the Shaila, Reb Chaim Kanievsky. He has mastery over Kol HaTorah Kula. Go to Reb Chaim. So the man asked, could you do me a favor? Could you schedule an appointment with Reb Chaim Kanievsky? Next day they meet Reb Chaim. And both parents of the Chasam, parents of the Kal, they sit down in front of Reb Chaim. And Reb Chaim hears a case that boggles the mind. Chassan gets up to speak. Chassan says, it's not right to the Kala that the Chasana should take place, that she should have to endure B'shana Rishona, the hardships of caring for a husband, undergoing treatments. Therefore, I demand the wedding not take place right now. The Kala says, no, Chas v'shalom. He's a budding Talmid Chacham. This is precisely when he needs the chizuk of a loving wife, and therefore she insists that the chasana take place b'shat heva matzacha. Reb Chaim, he doesn't know if it's Purim, what's going on, or he couldn't believe it. Instead of each one insisting on their rights, each one insisted what's good for the other one. Reb Chaim hears the case, he paskins unequivocally, they have to get married at the scheduled time, and he gives a bracha, they should be zoicha to build a bayis nam b'Yisrael. Okay, the parents hear the psak, they break out into tears of joy. Day of the chasana comes, and Rav Man says to Reb Chaim, Reb Chaim, considering the precarious health of the chasan and the whole matzav, and you were the one who talked them into it, maybe you want to go to the wedding, it would be a big chizuk to them. Now Reb Chaim rarely ventures out to a wedding, and he agreed. So his surprised appearance makes a big rash at the wedding. Everyone stands up, everyone sings Yamim, right? You can imagine everyone greets Reb Chaim, right? Something like that. and Reb Chaim then goes to the Chasam. He dances with him for 15 minutes. It's like Mein Olam Haba. Reb Chaim gives the Chasam a bracha. Everyone escorts Reb Chaim out to his waiting car. Rav Man is sitting in the car with Reb Chaim, and he musters up the guts to ask the big question: how in the world are you comfortable telling the Chassan and Kala to get married? I mean, you know what kind of situation the Chassan is in. Why would you put the girl in this situation? What did you base your psak on? Says Reb Chaim, what do you mean what I base it on? It's a Beferish Medrash in Parshas Noach. Huh? What does the Medrash say? Says the Medrash, during one of the travels of Alexander the Great, he arrives at a faraway kingdom called Katsia. I was never there. And the native king of Katsia comes out to greet Alexander with a gift of gold. Alexander said, no, I didn't come for your gold, I didn't come for your silver, of which I have quite an adequate supply. I came to study your judicial system, how you judge monetary cases. So the king says, look, you came to the right place. Come with me. They seat Alexander right next to the king. And the following case comes before the king. A man sold to his friend an ancient ruin, and the buyer found in the ancient ruin a treasure box. And the buyer is screaming, I sold the ruin, and the treasure box I didn't buy. I have no right to the treasure box. It belongs to the seller. And the seller is yelling, what are you talking about? I sold the ruin with everything in it, it's yours. So the king strokes his beard, and he says to the buyer, do you have a son of marriageable age? He said, yeah. Turns to the seller, you have a daughter, marriageable? Yeah. He said, my psak is, they marry each other, and they split the treasure. The king turns to Alexander, he says, how do you like that one? You like that psak? How would you have paskin? What would have been your decision? Alexander said, my decision would have been, I would have killed the buyer, I would have killed the seller, and I would have kept the treasure back. So the king says, does the sun shine in your kingdom? Sure, says I. Does the rain fall? Well, it sure doesn't fall in your merit. Maybe the rain falls and the sun shines in the merit of the animals, but you're even less than the animals. Says Reb Chaim Kanievsky, what do I see from this medrash? I see from this medrash that if you have two people arguing about something, if each party is mevater, if they both give in, if they both overlook their needs to try to help and see what the needs of the other one is, then what the outcome is, they both win. It's a win-win situation. Says Reb Chaim, in this case, what does it mean, a win-win? Let them both marry each other. The Chassan will have refuah shalema, and they're going to be zoicha to build a bayis ne'eman b'Yisrael. Paskin Reb Chaim, based on this medrash in Parshas Noach. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky once said that people think that someone who's mevater, someone who gives in, is a tzaddik, or a Baal Midos, or an oiska arbete mensch, somebody who works on his arrogance. Says Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, someone who's mevater, he ain't no tzaddik, he ain't no Baal Midos. You know what he is? He's a chacham. Because when you give in, you don't give in, you end up winning. So may the Rebbe Shalom give us siyata shmaya to be koina this midah of Redif Hashem, and we should be zoicha to kol habrachos v'amuros b'Torah agun shalom.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.